Russia has launched yet another wave of missile strikes on Ukraine, killing at least 4 people. Kyiv's defense forces say that the whole country is under the threat of a ballistic weapons attack after Russia launched 10 missiles and 81 drones overnight. Ukraine says its air defenses shot down 60 of those drones and 5 missiles near the capital, Kyiv. Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, the central city of Kyiv and Zaporizhia region and the southeast were among the areas targeted. It comes a day after one of the biggest airstrikes of the war from Russia. On Monday, 7 people were killed with many more injured as more than half of Ukraine was under attack from drones and missiles. It also comes 3 weeks after Ukraine's incursion into Russia's Kursk region, which Moscow has vowed to retaliate. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, in his response to Russia's latest attack, says Ukraine will retaliate. Speaking during his usual nightly address, President Zelensky said efforts are underway to eliminate the consequences of the Russian strikes. In his words, we will undoubtedly respond to Russia for this and other attacks. Crimes against humanity cannot go unpunished. He noted the attack was one of the heaviest the country has seen in recent months, indicating there should be no restriction on long-range weapons for Ukraine. The Ukrainian president also called on the United States, the United Kingdom, France, and other Western allies to help stop the aggression. Well, President Zelensky says he's going to present a plan to the United States on how he intends to end the war with Russia. This he revealed at a press conference in Kyiv. President Zelensky says a plan would be presented to presidential candidates Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. It will also be presented to current presidents Joe Biden. The plan will include steps on the diplomatic and economic fronts, separating Ukraine's incursion in Kursk, which has also been part of his strategy to get Moscow to start peace talks. In the meantime, the U.S. president has condemned Russia's attacks on Ukraine, said Moscow will never succeed in Ukraine and the spirit of the Ukrainian people will never be broken. President Joe Biden made this known in a post on social media platform X, noting Washington would continue to support Ukraine's fight against Russia's aggression. The post further reads, I condemn in the strongest possible terms Russia's continued war against Ukraine and its efforts to plunge the Ukrainian people into darkness. More from the front line, Kyiv's top military commander, General Alexander Sesky, has confirmed Ukrainian forces are pressing on with a cross-border incursion into Russia's Kursk region. He says Ukraine now controls 1,294 square kilometers of Russian territory and 100 settlements. He also noted that about 594 Russian servicemen have been taken as prisoners. The top commander noted that one of the objectives of Ukraine's incursion into Kursk is to distract significant numbers of enemy troops from other areas such as Povrovsk and Krykovy in Donbass, and it was achieved successfully. He also says Russia is aware of this objective and is concentrating its most combat-ready units in Pokrovsk. Back in Russia, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has accused the West of complicity in Ukraine's surprise incursion into the Kursk region, saying that Russia's nuclear doctrine is being clarified accordingly. He did not elaborate on what this means, but Russia has often threatened use of nuclear weapons in its invasion of Ukraine. As recently as June, President Vladimir Putin said the same thing, that he could modify his country's nuclear doctrine, which currently permits the use of such weapons only in specific circumstances. These threats have remained just that, threats, despite the US and other Western powers giving tens of billions of dollars in weaponry to Ukraine, some of which has been used to strike Russian soil. Let's bring in now the VOA's Anna Chernikova, who is in Kyiv. Anna, another night of attacks from Russia again, with Kyiv being one of the targets. We're glad you're okay. But what were the targets like this time?
Good evening. Well, this night was not that intense as previous. according to analysts and according to military, it looks like the Russian forces were basically trying to attack. Still, the main target was energy infrastructure, but they were trying to attack those targets that they did not reach previous night on Monday. And basically, well, in Kyiv, I've heard personally a couple of explosions. This was explosions of air defense destroying ballistic missiles, and particularly, I've heard particularly one very clearly and very loudly. It was not far from my neighborhood, but it was destroyed in the air, and no destructions inside of the city, at least inside of the residential areas were not reported, and this night, mainly the destructions were reported in Zaporizhia and Kryvyi Rih. In Zaporizhia, there are casualties as well as in Kryvyi Rih. Unfortunately, at least 3 people were killed in Kryvyi Rih in the hotel, which was hit directly by a ballistic missile, a Russian ballistic missile, and yet it's another hotel in this past couple of days. Over the weekend, Russian forces hit the hotel in Kramatorsk, which killed at least one journalist from Reuters, and another one is in a very serious condition in the hospital. So this attack was mainly targeting Khmelnytska region, Kyiv, Kryvyi Rih, Sumy, and Zaporizhia.
I can imagine you getting used to the sound of those rockets, in the air or even on the land by Russia. And I can imagine the rest of Ukraine also experiencing this. Our thoughts and prayers for the Reuters journalist who was killed. Now, President Volodymyr Zelensky has promised a response to Russia. We've seen this over the past few months. I mean, these attacks and counterattacks. And it seems like a never-ending story for Russia and Ukraine. But he says the incursion into Kursk is to force Russia to negotiations and discussions of peace between the two. How can he achieve this, if both sides continue to attack each other?
Yeah, President Zelensky announced that it will be a response, and he said that F-16 jets will be used for that, as well as Kursk operation. And actually, in the same during the same press conference, he confirmed that Ukrainian forces used F-16 jets already to repel the Monday attack on Ukraine. And coming back to your question. Here in Ukraine, there is understanding that if the war is happening only on the territory of Ukraine, this would never end, and basically this would be just ongoing until the moment that Russia would just use the time and use the territory to defend Ukraine, because Ukraine is smaller, Ukraine has less people, Ukraine has less capacities. So this is the realization here inside the country, that if the war is happening only on the territory of Ukraine, this is not going to end anytime soon. And in any realistic perspective, it will just end when Ukraine will not be able to defend itself, or it will never end at all. So the idea is that here again, this is what experts are saying, what authorities are saying. It's not a secret that the only possible way to end this war is to start the war on the territory of Russia as well, so that Russian people also feel that it's war, not a special operation or a special military operation, how President Putin calls it, but it is actually a war which is happening on both sides. Because basically when war is happening on one side, it doesn't look like a war. So this is the reason, and this is what probably, of course, I'm not President Zelensky, but probably this is what he meant, that Kursk operation, and according to what he said, additionally during his press conference, he said that the Kursk operation demonstrated to, first of all, to the Russian people, Russian society, that President Putin do not really see the protection of Russian territory as a priority, because his main goal is to get another Ukrainian city in the Donetsk region to get control over it rather than protect Russian territory, because as we can see at this point, at least according to intelligence from different countries, that Russian forces were not withdrawed in big capacities from the Donetsk region to protect Kursk region. And basically, Ukrainian authorities address this as the fact that Putin gives priority to occupy more Ukrainian territories rather than protect Russian territory. And also, of course, for future negotiations, Ukraine wants to have, this certain things on the table, and having control of the Russian territory could be a bargaining coin for the future negotiations. This is how it is seen here inside the country. So it's just, we just compare what experts and authorities are saying and how it looks at this point.
Yes, and he does have a plan that he intends to present to the U.S. president, as well as, the presidential candidates for the upcoming elections in November. I'm just wondering, in that plan, and I know you're not the president, you already said, you're just trying to get into his head. The Russian government talks about the use of long-range weapons. And I'm just wondering if President Zelensky thinks that this will be the game changer, in this war. If he does get access to those long-range weapons, if the West does provide him with those weapons, does it seem like, Moscow could be the next target of attack, seeing that for Ukraine, it's the capital, Kyiv, that has been attacked? I mean, if Ukraine is trying to retaliate, it kind of would make sense to also be hitting the Russian capital.
You're right. And answering your first question, yes, I think that this would be a game changer, not only because Ukraine will get access to the capital or to any other city, but first of all, because Ukraine will get access to military bases and airfields, which Russia is using to attack Ukraine every other night. Also the storage of the weapons and so on and so forth. But and this is actually what was said publicly by Ukrainian authorities as well, that attacking Moscow and St. Petersburg would also be something that, they did not really say this directly, but they said that attacking certain, big capitals, economic capitals in Russia would also, could also create certain, changes in the path of this war. And a lot of experts believe that St. Petersburg and Moscow, if they are under constant attacks, if we imagine situations that Ukraine get access and get permission to use long-range weapons to attack these territories, this could create, additional pressure on President Putin, particularly from the Russian, leaders in different areas, especially in the economic sphere, in the business sphere, because it looks like that, these people would not be really happy about attacks every other night, or, attacks and losses of their businesses. So this is the idea. And of course, Ukrainian authorities do not say this directly, do not confirm this, but what they do confirm is that long-range missiles, the permission to use long-range missiles could help to restrain Russian capacities and to destroy a lot of infrastructural sites, which is important as well in this war, especially if we're talking about Crimea, because Crimea is connected with Russia only by a bridge. So this also could be, part of a plan. Theoretically, again, this is what experts are discussing. And as we can see, and this is what also President Zelensky announced just a couple of days ago, that Ukraine has already used a new type of weapon produced by Ukraine. It's a missile and drone in one, it all together. And it was used actually to attack a long-distance target inside of Russia. Sorry, not inside of Russia, but in the somewhere in the Black Sea. And this was an example that Ukraine, if Ukraine has these capacities, it could be successful. So, I mean, of course, it will be a game changer, but we will see how the allies will respond, and if this decision would be actually, available for Ukraine.
Yes, and I know that the Russian government has ridiculed, this line of thought for Ukraine as it speaks to its Western allies. The Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov described it as, he said, it's playing with matches like small children. And again, we're back to the discussion on Russia considering the use of nuclear weapons, because according to them, if Ukraine is considering, and if it does use long-range weapons from the West, then all bets are off in this war. They can also introduce their own nuclear weapons to fight Ukraine and eventually possibly take over the country.
Well, we've heard this already before. We've heard this about, so if Ukraine would attack Crimean Bridge, this would happen. If Ukraine will attack Russian territories, this would happen. At this point, we can see that the attack of the bridge was indeed once implemented. Ukraine is controlling a certain part of Kursk region. But we don't see any, nuclear actions. Let's put it this way, on the plate at this point, at least at this moment. Russia previously has already used a lot of times and continued to use nuclear threats as a strategy. But of course, we don't know what they have in mind and what the real plans are. However, considering that Ukraine is not a nuclear state, it looks like, and again, experts also consider this as the fact that it complicates the use of the nuclear weapons by Russia, because Ukraine is not a nuclear state, and basically all nuclear states, they have their certain also protocols and rules, and if one state is using nuclear weapon, especially against the state with no nuclear weapon, there are certain also rules to be introduced by the other states. So it looks like a very complicated decision, and actually some experts believe here in Ukraine that the use of nuclear weapon would actually complicate things for Putin himself, because basically, during USSR and during modern Russia, it was always, so nuclear weapon was basically prepared to repel certain actions by the West, by the US. So it was always, such kind of rhetorics and narration and narrative. But to use it against small country like Ukraine, I mean, it's really something that probably, this would definitely add a lot of complications to the decision. So, but of course, no one knows. But at least at this point here in Ukraine, not many would tell you that they believe Russia will do it.
I guess we'll wait and see and hope for the best. Anna, thank you for speaking with us. And as always, stay safe.
Thank you.